Travis Kelce have been sold to the public as the ultimate fairy tale couple, supportive, unproblematic, and almost too perfect. But now that flawless image is being quietly questioned, and not by random internet trolls, by relationship experts who say something about their romance just doesn't sit right. What made people stop and look twice was a surprising comparison. Their relationship is now being likened to George and Amal Clooney's famously conflict-free marriage, a comparison that sounds flattering on the surface, until you hear why experts say it could actually be a red flag. Because when a relationship looks this smooth, you have to ask, is perfection really healthy? It all started with a single comment that seemed harmless at first. Travis Kelce casually revealed that in more than 2 years together, he and Taylor have never had a single argument, not once. No blow-ups, no heated moments, no tension spilling into the open. And he didn't say it in a press interview, he said it on a Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce have been sold to the public as the ultimate fairy tale couple, supportive, unproblematic, and almost too perfect. But now that flawless image is being quietly questioned, and not by random internet trolls, by relationship experts who say something about their romance just doesn't sit right. What made people stop and look twice was a surprising comparison. Their relationship is now being likened to George and Amal Clooney's famously conflict-free marriage, a comparison that sounds flattering on the surface, until you hear why experts say it could actually be a red flag. Because when a relationship looks this smooth, you have to ask, is perfection really healthy? It all started with a single comment that seemed harmless at first. Travis Kelce casually revealed that in more than 2 years together, he and Taylor have never had a single argument, not once. No blow-ups, no heated moments, no tension spilling into the open. And he didn't say it in a press interview, he said it on his own podcast while sitting across from George Clooney himself. That's when things got interesting. George, who's long claimed he and Amal haven't argued in over a decade, was put on the spot. Travis half-jokingly asked if he was telling the truth. George didn't hesitate. He doubled down, insisting there's simply nothing worth fighting over. And then he flipped the question right back, prompting Travis to admit that his relationship with Taylor follows the exact same pattern. To some fans, it sounded romantic. Two powerful couples completely in sync, floating above the messiness of normal relationships. But behind the scenes, that never-argued claim was already setting off alarm bells, and what experts started saying next is where the fairy tale began to crack. Relationship experts were quick to point out that total calm isn't always what it seems. On the surface, never arguing sounds like emotional maturity, but according to therapists, it can sometimes mean the opposite, that feelings are being swallowed instead of shared. Disagreements aren't just normal, they're necessary. They're how couples test boundaries, express needs, and actually learn how to understand each other. When conflict never shows up, experts say it can signal that one or both partners are avoiding uncomfortable conversations altogether. And avoidance doesn't make problems disappear, it just hides them. That's why claims like this tend to raise eyebrows in professional circles. A relationship without friction can look peaceful, but beneath that calm, something else might be happening. And as psychologists warn, what starts as harmony can quietly turn into emotional distance, and that's when the real damage begins. Psychologists say this is where things can slowly shift from perfect to problematic. When couples choose peace over honesty, small frustrations don't vanish, they pile up. Nothing explodes, but nothing truly gets resolved either. Over time, that can create a quiet gap between two people who still look close on the outside. One clinical psychologist explained that relationships like this often rely on restraint rather than connection. One partner may avoid speaking up to keep things smooth, while the other assumes everything is fine. It feels stable at first, comfortable, but that comfort can come at the cost of real emotional intimacy. And this isn't about fame or money or lifestyle. Experts stress that this pattern shows up everywhere in ordinary couples just as much as celebrity ones. When conflict is treated like a threat instead of a tool, it doesn't protect the relationship. It slowly chips away at it, And that idea becomes even more unsettling once you hear what insiders close to these couples are saying. Sources close to both couples suggest the calm might not come from deep compatibility but from distance. With demanding careers, constant travel, and packed schedules, there's simply less time for everyday friction to surface. When two people are rarely in the same place long enough, it's easier to stay pleasant and harder to address anything uncomfortable. One insider familiar with George and Amal's dynamic admitted that their never argue claim raised quiet questions behind closed doors. Not because anyone doubts their respect for each other, but because people wondered what wasn't being said. When a relationship runs too smoothly, it can make others question whether important conversations are being skipped entirely. And that same skepticism is now being aimed at Taylor and Travis. Sources say their lives are moving at full speed, often in parallel rather than together. From the outside, it looks like harmony, but insiders hint that this kind of friction-free bond doesn't always mean everything's aligned. Sometimes it just means there hasn't been space for tension to show itself yet, and that's where the comparison to the Clooneys starts to feel a lot less flattering. That's why some experts believe the same pattern could be forming in Taylor and Travis's relationship right now. They're still firmly in what many call the honeymoon phase, where everything feels effortless, disagreements seem unnecessary, and imperfections are easy to overlook. And there's nothing wrong with that until it becomes the only way a relationship knows how to exist. Marriage counselors point out that flawless relationships don't teach couples how to navigate tension when it eventually shows up. If conflict has never been tested, there's no blueprint for handling it. What looks like emotional maturity can actually be fragility, a bond that depends on everything staying calm to survive. And while fans see chemistry, support, and constant smiles, experts see something else, a relationship that hasn't yet been challenged. Because constant peace isn't always love, sometimes it's just the absence of pressure. And what happens when that pressure finally arrives is what truly defines whether a relationship is strong or simply well managed on the surface. Despite all the speculation, fans remain completely charmed by both couples. Taylor and Travis still look inseparable, turning every public appearance into a headline moment, and George and Amal continue to insist their unity comes from mutual respect, not emotional distance. From the outside, these relationships look calm, supportive, and deeply enviable. But insiders and experts agree on one thing: picture-perfect peace can be misleading. Just because a relationship looks effortless doesn't mean it's being tested, and just because there's no visible conflict doesn't mean everything is being said. In the end, whether it's Taylor and Travis or George and Amal, the real question isn't who argues and who doesn't. It's whether a relationship can stay strong once perfection cracks. Because sometimes the most revealing moments in love don't come from harmony. They come from how two people handle the first real disagreement. And that's what keeps people watching these relationships so closely. Not because anyone wants them to fail, but because perfection always invites scrutiny. When a couple claims they've never argued, it doesn't end the conversation. It starts a much bigger one about what's happening beneath the surface. For Taylor and Travis, time will be the real test. As the spotlight fades, schedules shift, and real-life pressures creep in, that flawless calm will either deepen into something solid or expose cracks no one could see before. The same curiosity follows the Clooneys, whose calm has long been admired and quietly questioned at the same time. Because in the end, love isn't defined by how smooth it looks when everything is easy. It's revealed in what happens when things finally aren't. And that's the part of the story no headline, podcast clip, or red carpet smile can fully explain. So now it's your turn. Do you think a relationship with zero conflict is a sign of emotional maturity, or a warning that something's being left unsaid? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to know where you stand. If you enjoy breaking down celebrity relationships beyond the headlines, make sure to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Because behind every perfect love story, there's always more than meets the eye.